Women podcast. For your career and your life, no matter what business you're in.
Hello and welcome to a brand new spotlight season of the Northern Power Women podcast. I'm your host, Simone Roche, and to kickstart 2022, Happy New Year, everyone. We want to start with that good tone, and we want to manifest some positive vibes across the Northern Power Women community. 2022, we are absolutely ready for you with our shortlist round the corner for the 6th Northern Power Women Awards, which we'll be announcing, get this, 11 minutes past 11 on the 11th of January, 11 category shortlists coming your way. Massive thanks to EY, our headline partners of the Northern Power Women Awards. And who better on our first episode of 2022 to join me on today's chat is no other than producer, award-winning podcast queen and broadcaster extraordinaire, Samantha Walker. Come on down. Welcome to 2022. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Simone. I feel like I'm at school every time anyone calls me Samantha. But at school or in brownies still. But yeah, hello. How are you doing?
Oh, do you know what? It's Ace. I miss our chats. I miss, for those of you who are long-term listeners and subscribers of the Northern Power Women podcast, Sam and I founded the Northern Power Women podcast back in 2017. We are award-winning, aren't we, last year? Or the year before, we should say now. But last year, over the pandemic kind of series, as we would have called it, we had a weekly diary, didn't we? And every week we would come together across the ocean, because Sam is over in Arizona now doing amazingly well, which you'll tell us about hopefully in today's show. But we used to come together every week and try and work out what on earth was going on.
We didn't really come to any conclusions, but we had a really good time and made some really good connections with people. And hopefully we're a bit of a voice of that little voice in your head that was going, what the heck is going on with the world? We were there to say, we got you. We feel it as well. We know what it's like.
I know. And I think it was definitely just that figuring out. And we don't want to, we love those chats. And actually, to be honest, it was massively reassuring for me to know I had you every Thursday to kind of have that little bit of pre-chat, post-chat, and like you say, trying to work it out. But we want to start 2022 with you. We're always about the positive. We finished last year off with that reflections. What were our positive reflections? And if you listened to last week's episode, I was delighted to be joined by my team who all shared theirs. Some of them very new into the mix at the power women world. And so it was great to hear from them and hear about what their reflections. But we want to start this year talking about and spotlight our goals. What are the things that are coming forward for us? Because we hope that coming through into 2022, we can really sort of map some progress, really put some really kind of big, audacious goals out there, because we know that's what the Northern Power Women's like. I'm a big fan of big and audacious. What about you, Sam?
I absolutely agree. And, goal setting is one of those things that you hear, don't you, time and time again. If you ever read a business book or you listen to a business podcast, and it's one of these sort of secrets of the CEOs, and they talk about the fact that someone like, I was going to say Elon Musk, is perhaps not the best example anymore, but, a CEO of that caliber, and it's always like they get up at 5 a.m. and do half an hour of power yoga, and then they journal, and all of these things that the best will in the world is never going to be part of my daily routine. I'm not suddenly become someone who gets up at 5 and does power yoga. However, one thing you do notice time and time and time again is this talk of goal setting and actually physically writing down some of your goals, your business goals, your personal goals, lifestyle goals, whatever they might be. And it's really interesting, isn't it, when you start to unpick how powerful it can be to actually set a goal, as opposed to say, oh, I just want to get some more clients this year, or oh, I want to make sure that my day rate or my business rate goes up. Oh, I want to hire a couple of extra people this year, or whatever it might be if you're in business. To actually spend some time and really focus in on those goals and go, what does it mean to say, I want some more clients? How many more do you want? What sort of clients do you want to attract? And to dig really deep into those things is actually dead powerful. And I think a lot of it is actually spending some time sitting and really thinking about what it is you want to achieve. Because it's very easy, I think, just to go, oh yeah, make some more money, get a new job, work in a different sector. But what does that really mean? And once you get intentional about something, that then is the start of you really starting to make a change in life. So it's something that, for me, for 2022 is really important, that I was super lucky. We've talked about this, Simone. So lucky during the pandemic that the business I work in of podcasting boomed. It boomed. I think a lot of big organizations who had marketing spend, advertising spend, well, they're not going to suddenly use that advertising spend on the side of, say, football pitches or in public transport places where people weren't going to be. So they looked at getting their marketing messages and other messages into places where people were. That's at home, on their phones, on their smart speakers, listening. So for me, it was a very lucky time, but it was an incredibly busy time. And it whipped by in such a flash. And I was just sort of scrambling from week to week going, am I doing okay? Is this all right? And now what I really want to do is take some time, because I know I've made a lot of mistakes over the last year. I've really undersold myself a lot of times, but I didn't really know what to do and how to focus in on what my worth is, because I hadn't set any goals and I hadn't had any time to just sit and go, where do I want to take this now?
And we talked about this, I think, last summer or, gosh, even before that, where we talked about mentoring. You know, we've closed out 2021 with our big goal from our Levelling Up Progress report, which is about we want to get the country mentoring. We want to get the country mentoring. We want to do what Joe Wicks did for PE. We want to do for mentoring and enable it to be easy for people to do it. But I know we had a conversation around mentoring. But I think it might have been even longer than that, Sam. And it was like, oh, I've never had a mentor, is what you said to me. And I was like, for goodness sake. And we rushed out, didn't we? And we corralled a few people together to start a conversation. But you've moved on a step further now, haven't you, with, beyond mentoring?
Yeah. And again, this is a decision I took a couple of months ago. As I said, I was just kind of rolling through the days, sitting at my desk early doors here in Arizona, sort of at my desk for 8 a.m. or if I could get the kids out to school before then. And then really just ploughing through my list. And I've always been one for a to-do list. I love a list. I always like to plan my day out, map my day out. What is the has to be dones today? What is the would like to be dones? And then the bit at the bottom that never gets looked at, if there's any time left over. There never is. And I like to prioritize things like that. And I realized the thing that was always on the bottom of my list was update your website, look at your business plan. I don't have a plan. It's just something that's organically grown. But look at a plan, look at some goals. And it always dropped off the end. Always. I never gave that time. A bit like if I don't book my Pilates class in, I'm never going to go. It has to be in the calendar and I can't move it, And I thought, well, this is a big problem. How do I get over that problem? Because I'm so busy and I'm still a mum of two fairly young kids, teenager now, 14 and 10. They still are very much needing me. I've got loads of animals. I've got a husband. I've got, there's so much going on, as we know, as women of a certain age working. We've got a lot of demands on our time. And I thought, well, how can I ensure that I spend some time every week on goal setting, on looking at my pricing, on working out what sort of clients I want to attract? And I thought, it's a business coach. That's my next step. That's what I need to do. And I found someone who's actually based in the UK. I love working with American people, but I kind of thought there's a certain level of understanding, even though hilariously my business coach is South African, even though he lives in London. And I thought this is going to be really powerful because it's going to help me unlock the sort of work I really want to do and want to attract versus the work that perhaps might be bring a bit more money in. But is that what I really want to do? What are my real goals here? What do I want to focus on? How do I want to grow my team? I know some of the people I work with. Michael is just fantastic. He produces this podcast for us now.
Love Michael.
He's incredible. I want to give him more opportunity. I'd love him to be able to grow and expand because he's brilliant and he does, so many other things as well. How can I really achieve this? And I can't achieve it on my own. Of course I can't. But booking in that time now with Harry means that I have time every week. And guess what? I've paid for it. It's not like it's going to drop away. I've committed to this. So having time with him. And at the moment, you can imagine, Simone, our first couple of sessions and me been going blah, 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 and him going, okay, there's a lot there. And I was like, there is, isn't there? So it's starting to help me unpick what I need to do and how I need to prioritize things moving forward. But booking that time in, having it in my diary, knowing that is time for me to think about what my goals are, to begin to set those goals is a really fantastic way. And it feels good to kind of invest in myself as well. It feels really good.
It's giving yourself permission, isn't it? What do you think is the balance between your personal and business goals in a world where we've all seen and felt, haven't we, the blurring of those lines, especially when not just working from home because of the pandemic, but working from home because that's what probably you and I have done for a long time anyway. There is a blur, isn't there?
That's something I don't have an answer to yet. There is definite... The thing is, I do love what I do. And it's interesting because one of the podcasts I've produced this year was for In Style magazine here in the USA, you know, the big fashion magazine. And there were some A-list guests on that podcast, some proper A-list guests. It felt very, very weird. And I remember talking to the brilliant Sarah Waddington, you know, the PR guru expert about it. And she said, "Are you bloody name dropping again, Sam?" Because I was talking about sitting here sort of in pajamas and Reese Witherspoon, I was producing a session with her and these crazy A-list people. And it was surreal, but also very interesting to hear them have very, very honest conversations with the host of the podcast, who's the editor of the magazine, Laura Brown. And when she talked about how do you relax, and this is funny because I'm about to compare myself to the amazing actress Sarah Paulson, which, you know, at 99.9% of levels, there's no comparison. But she said, and Zendaya said this as well, I don't really have any hobbies. I don't have any hobbies. And I've never had a hobby really. And I've always felt a bit less than for not having a hobby because I thought, what's wrong with me? Loads of people have got great hobbies they love doing. Why don't I have a hobby? And then these quite well-versed actors and actresses were like, I don't have a hobby. And Laura said, maybe it's because your work is kind of your hobby. Because if you really love what you do, then you pour all your energy and passion into it. And I thought, you're right. Because I think Desert Diaries, the podcast I make about moving to Arizona that goes out on the BBC, I think that's my hobby. Yeah, it's still work, you know. So, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's a really interesting learning moment. Maybe we should stop beating ourselves up for not having, like, being a great baker or being somebody who does needlepoint or whatever it might be, these great hobbies that people have. I do love creating, and I love creating, whether it's branded content, whether it's a podcast I'm writing. And so that for me was quite interesting that I thought, yeah, maybe I need to not worry so much. I don't have a hobby per se, but I still think I would probably want to work a bit more on having a line when I stop working. That for me is an issue because it can just roll on to madness otherwise.
I think it can. And I think as the sort of that we navigate kind of new restrictions or new changes or whatever, it's almost, I think one of my goals is almost trying to, pandemic proof my goal setting and not worry about the if, woulda, shoulda, coulda, do we do this, do we not do this? It's almost, right, these are going to be the goals. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do as a business. This is what I'm going to try and implement more into that life balance piece of work, which I know both you and I both really have struggled with and do struggle with, and more risk assess when, you know, as we have to learn with this pandemic. And I think that's why I get very obsessive about not building back better, but going forward, because we don't know what's ahead. There's lots of mysteries and no one does. And I think that was one of the things we talked about during the pandemic. So we're making history every day. So, you know, and it's one of my team said on her reflections of the podcast of last year was about being kind to ourselves. So I think I think there's an element of that. And again, we had many of those conversations where you're going, right, well, I've not learned Japanese this week, and I've not made homemade sourdough.
I don't know what a sourdough starter is still, yeah.
Yeah. You know, so does that mean I'm failing, you know? So as we kind of, you know, we want to kickstart this 2022, and it takes forever, doesn't it? Do you remember in the years when we used to write checks? How many times did you put the wrong date in? We don't do that anymore, do we?
Do you know what?
Anyway.
The checkbook is still alive and well in America. It's very bizarre. I write checks all the time. And of course, Here you write the date the other way round. So the 1st of December is 12/1, which it's just 3 years in. I'm just about getting a grip with. It's madness.
So your big audacious goal, you know, you've got a life coach. Actually, that's, you know, a business coach, sorry, that's a massive, because it's a commitment, it's a relationship. So when we're sort of raising a glass of sherry wine at the end of 2022, what are we going to be raising a glass? What goals are you going to have nailed and, you know, really surpassed? What do you think?
It's hard to say out loud because I feel like I'm at the beginning of the journey with my business coach, and it's almost like I've made this commitment, and I know that at the moment setting some goals is what my goal is. If you see what I mean, we are at the start of the year. So that's another thing. I'm not going to beat myself up if I don't get this all nailed down instantly. But some of the things that I'm really ruminating on right now is looking around at the people I'm working with. And I'm working with some fantastic people here in the United States, really, really talented. But then I look at them and think, so you're doing the kind of work I'm doing. And yet I know I've got 15 years more experience than you. So you are doing a great job, but I think I might be in the wrong room. So it's really starting to understand my worth, understand my experience, and not being afraid to pitch myself higher than I have been. You know, it's been a real journey for me. I came out of being in the BBC for, 15, 20 years, which is, something where you kind of, you move along, you trundle along, and you're within that space. And now I'm kind of learning about what my worth is in the world, learning about things like pricing that, a day of my time isn't a day of my time. It's 20 years experience. But it's one thing that my business coach said to me. It's not just your 20 years of your experience, but it's actually the impact that experience is going to have on that business moving forward. So it's twice you're having to look at your pricing. What are you bringing? But also, what are you giving to them in the longer term? So all these things I found really interesting. So for me, my goals are to really understand my worth in the space that I'm in. My real goals is I want to set up a company within the USA and as a partner company to my company, What Goes On Media in the UK. And I want to really help grow and expand my team. So they're my main goals. But, I know I'm going to get more granular on them. And that time's going to come.
That's 3 goals. That's 3 goals you've said out loud, first episode of the year. So we're going to reflect on those when we do our reflection season in 12 months' time. We're going to look at that, aren't we, I think? And I think, so we want to hear from yours. So please connect with us on our socials, at North Power Women on Twitter and at Northern Power Women on all the other socials. Drop us a line at podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Don't forget, kickstart your new year. Set a goal by giving us a review. How about that? That would be amazing. But seriously, we want to hear from you, because sometimes I had a conversation this morning with a great woman, one of our power women, and we ended up getting sidetracked in the conversation. Who knew that would happen? Because we ended up sort of going, actually, we need to hold each other to account, because I've been someone who's kept so much stuff in my head, and we both realised we were quite simple. In fact, she says, we are both like puppies on a lino. I'm like, no, I said that to one of my team, what's a lino? And I went, so a linoleum floor in the old days, a bit of like, sort of kitchen floor.
Always freezing cold in the winter when he went going to school, yeah.
But that scrambling that a puppy does across the floor, sometimes trying to keep up, trying to do everything. And, this is a woman with, letters after a name and, very, very big sort of powers and, power for good. And so I suppose that's one of the things to me is we've agreed to hold each other to account, because we suddenly realised on a 30-minute call this morning is that we're quite similar. And so that was one of the things. And for my thing is about getting things out my head. And getting things written down, because my team are amazing, but they don't work by telepathy. So I think there's one of those goals about more clarity and more goals. And actually, I'm going to say it out loud. I'm going to pay myself by this time next year. It's been 7 years. It's been a long time. And I think it's been time. But I want to make sure I've got the right people and the right team, that we're growing these skills. We've got fabulous, and I want to make sure that we can retain and grow that, because guess what? We'll enable more good stuff to happen. We'll enable more conversations in our mentoring. So that's what my goals are. Now I've said it out loud, so you can all hold me to account, but we want to hear yours. So please do get in touch. Sam, it's been a joy as ever, to have that conversation. Thank you for sharing your goals. Thank you. You always are so honest and open. I remember our conversation from the end of last year's, or the year before's edition. Do you remember? Please, we'll pop that.
It's so fat. How's it a year?
I can't believe it. The shortest and the longest of years. But let's go forward. Let's spotlight the good things. Let's manifest that Northern Power Women power for good. Please share your goals. Share them, because I think when you do hold each other to account, it enables the good stuff to happen. I'm so delighted to have you here with me today. I'm Simone Roche, she's Sam Walker, and you've been listening to the Northern Power Women podcast, a What Goes On media production, soon to be established in the USA.